Have you heard of the quote from Mark Twain that says, "A man's character may be learned from the adjective which he habitually uses in conversation"? Well, today we'll be talking about how you can take or make a call with different people and relationships in your life. If you have been watching this series where we have been diving deep on this book all about etiquette, you might be thinking this is quite basic. But yet, all we need to do is go outside and observe the things going on around us, and we can see that sometimes it is the most basic things that are the things that get overlooked. So first, let's talk about timing. If you are close to your phone when it's ringing, do not wait until the last second to answer the call. You should probably pick the phone up around after 3 seconds of it ringing. And you might be thinking, this is a bit nitpicky, this is a bit extreme. But have you ever called someone and they've answered the phone very quickly and it kind of catches you off guard? And then equally, have you ever called somebody and the phone rang and it rang and it rang, and then you think that they're not there, and then they answer at the last second and you're already hanging up? If you are next to your phone, all of this can be mitigated by just answering it within a few seconds of you hearing it ringing. Never mind the fact that if you are around people and your phone is ringing like this, you're disturbing the peace of those around you. Now, if you are taking a business call, you should always introduce yourself when answering the phone. It's customary that this will happen where you will say the name of the company you're working for and then you will say your name. I recently called my immigration solicitor, and when I called through, I literally got a hello on the end of the phone. Twice. Literally, the person who answered just said hello. Not the name of the company, hello, this is, nothing like that, just hello. This made me feel like I called the wrong number. This made me feel like I didn't call a business. This made me feel like they were going to be very incompetent with handling my documents and my matter. It felt informal, it felt juvenile. Now, if you're answering a personal phone call, there's no need to pick up the phone and introduce yourself. It's your personal phone. All you'll need to do is pick up the phone and say hello and wait for the caller to respond. Now, let's talk about attitude and emotion when answering these phone calls, because it matters. It is extremely bad manners to answer the phone emotionally or rudely, and therefore it's imperative that you listen and adjust your tone of voice. When we answer the phone in an emotional state, the caller can hear anger and interpret that to mean that you cannot be bothered with that call. They may even hang up on you because they've taken offense to your tone. The way that you sound over the phone gives you away. And in turn, the caller determines whether they want to have a conversation with you or not. When you answer the phone, you want your tone to be helpful and polite, especially if you don't know who the caller is. And one way to take control of your tone while you're on the phone is by correcting your posture. How we sit or stand when making a phone call can affect the tone in your voice. This is why, if you look closely, at some call centers, they'll actually allow the people working there to stand up and walk around. I think they showed this in The Wolf of Wall Street. Sitting up or standing will give you the right type of tone that is heard as serious or concerned. However, the posture that you take and the tone that you use is entirely up to you. And it's also going to be dependent on the type of relationship that you have with the person that you're speaking with on the phone. Another thing that you're going to want to look out for when wanting to practice proper phone etiquette is watching the language that you use. Especially if you're talking to someone a little bit more senior on the phone, you're going to want to be mindful what language you are using on the phone. This will also require you to pay attention, because here's the thing, when we're making phone calls, we're not using all of our senses. We're only using our hearing. So if you have a tendency to drift off or get sidetracked or lose focus while you're on a call, leave everything that may be a distraction to you and actively focus on the call, especially since all the visual cues of speaking are missing. And then piggybacking off of that sensory point, this is why it's quite difficult to use humor on the phone with people that you don't really know, because they only have one element that they can take stock of when determining the humor that you're using on the phone, and often that this can get lost in translation. So unless your intent is obvious, it's probably best to stick to unambiguous speech. Have you ever picked up the phone and heard someone yell through the receiver? Equally, have you experienced a bad line and then the person on the other end of the phone is a very soft speaker? Especially when we are in a public place, we should try not to shout when we're on the phone. And equally, we should be trying to excuse ourselves to a private place to take a call. And if possible, use an ear set when taking a call, and definitely not your speakerphone. If a caller can't hear you, ask them to call back at a later date and a later time when you will be somewhere where you can appropriately take the phone call. Now, when should we avoid calls? We spoke about this in a previous video, but if you are in a meeting or an interview or at a private event, your phone should always be turned off. And you should let these calls go to voicemail. Did you watch the Queen's funeral? There was a moment when she was walking, I believe, into Westminster Abbey, and you hear a phone go off. Terrible. In these circumstances, it's so important to have the voicemail function on your phone. Many people don't like setting a voicemail because they don't like hearing the sound of their own voice. However, specifically if you are someone that's using your phone in business, it is imperative to have a voicemail. It's absolutely unacceptable if you don't. Last but not least, let's talk about respect. When you're in company or with business colleagues or even with your friends, unless it is important and it will be understood as important or relevant by the company that you're with, you should not take a phone call. If you must take the call, you should ask permission of those who you are with. Equally, you should extend your apologies if you must take the call and acknowledge to the company that you're with that you're showing them some level of regard and respect. Now, in the next etiquette video, we will be talking all about letter and email writing. I hope you will press subscribe so you can join me.